It's called Stopping WannaCry Ransomware. My name is Brooke Chelmo. I'm the Sonic Walls ransomware czar here, and it's a very important title for me to have. It's an honorific title. I'm a product marketing manager, so I'm here to help you stay secure and understand how Sonic Walls technology can help you stay safe and keep your network secure. Specifically today, how we at Sonic Walls stop ransomware far in advance of the attack that launched on Friday, the 12th of May, 2017. You're welcome to follow me on Twitter and communicate with me on Twitter if you have any questions. At @brchelmo is my handle on Twitter. So again, it's nice to be here. Here is our agenda. First of all, we're going to cover some ransomware basics, kind of do a ransomware 101, describe what that is. Then we're going to talk about some ransomware basics, about what it is at a basic level. Next, on how we stop it. Next, on how we prevent new infections, because since the first version of WannaCry, we have seen, I think, as many as 17 more versions, and that's only within a few days. And of course, we're also going to cover some best practices. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat window. So, as you all know, ransomware has been a big issue. It was the attack of the year, you could say, last year, when we saw a 600% growth in ransomware families the year before, and we had basically a 16,700% increase in ransomware attacks alone. In the year last year, we had, I think, Sonic Wall blocked over 630 million ransomware attacks on customer networks. That is a lot. Ransomware, of course, is more than just locking up files and asking for money to get them unlocked. It's becoming a huge problem. So just to kind of take a step back here, for anybody who does not know what ransomware is, it's a form of malware that once it gets into a system, it tries to encrypt the files and then demand a payment to unencrypt them. They hold the key hostage. So it's the key that's held hostage along with the files. And roughly in about 50% of cases, if you pay cyber criminals, you do get your files back, but in many cases, you do not. So that's, of course, why we recommend you do not pay these people, because you only encourage them to continue. Had we not been paying cyber criminals over this last year, WannaCry would not exist. So, that being said, ransomware is that type of an attack. It basically makes the value of data very personable. In many cases, a data breach is designed to exfiltrate valuable data, usernames, passwords, credit card details, payment information, etc., personal identifiers such as social insurance numbers or dates of birth, things like that, to build a profile for you to steal your identity, etc. So that being said, ransomware takes the data that is, whatever it is. It could be the files in your own computer. It could be marketing documents. It could be marketing plans, which are worthless to the outside world, but can be incredibly valuable to the people who are actually managing those documents and making them. Ransomware, of course, is a big problem. The FBI in the United States rated this to be a billion-dollar problem, but in reality, we know that the total impact is much larger than $1 billion. One point in case, the Board of Water and Light out of Lansing, Michigan, suffered a ransomware attack in April 2016. The total cost for them was $25,000. That was the total cost, or the total request of the ransom. The total cost in all was $2.4 million. So you can understand the impact. You know what ransomware is. It gets in typically through spam emails. 65% of all ransomware attacks come through spam. Next, they come through exploit kits, and of course, a lot of it can be found online. People trying to download things through Tor browsers. So, for example, trying to download Game of Thrones or a TV show or a movie that you'd like. In Asia, we had a major problem with people trying to download pirated versions of Pokemon Go last year because they couldn't get it in their region at that time. They were so hungry to get it, they're willing to download all sorts of malware. Sometimes it turns out to be ransomware trying to download Pokemon Go onto their cell phones. So, that being said, this is how it gets into an organization. So, with WannaCrypt, now that you understand what that is, WannaCrypt is a mixture of an exploit called Eternal Blue. It is a worm, and it is secondly a form of ransomware, just like I spoke to you before. You see on the screen here is what a lot of people would see if they were infected by this. They asked for $300 within the first 3 days. It doubled to $600 after that, and then within a total of 6 days, the files would be deleted. So this is what WannaCrypt looks like. The background image is a map of affected locations. Since then, that map has doubled. You cannot see Europe anymore. You can see Eastern Russia. You cannot see parts of Asia because it's covered in blue dots. So WannaCrypt is a very precious form of malware. Let me describe what this looks like to us. So like I mentioned before, it's a mixture of an exploit, a worm, and a ransomware variant. Eternal Blue supposedly was developed by the NSA here in the United States. It was supposedly stolen or leaked, and then of course the shadow brokers, which is an online organization that likes to spread this type of code, released it around Easter time, and people have been having their way with it ever since. So the developers of WannaCry took the exploit, understood how it worked, built a worm. They took their own version of ransomware, attached it to all three to do one thing: exploit this vulnerability in what was called the SMB vulnerability within Microsoft. And this is affecting most versions of Windows below Windows 10, specifically end-of-life versions of Windows, such as XP, Server 2000, things like that. Now, it's uncommon for Microsoft to come out and try to send a patch out for an EOL version of their software that they did for this in this case. So it's probably the first patch we've seen for XP in quite some time. So that being said, how it gets into an organization, typically it could be sent in as a phishing email. It could be sent as trying to hit an open port, say a port 445. And once it gets onto an endpoint, it will encrypt that endpoint and will now look at the drives connected to that computer to see if it can find more files and drives to infect. If it spreads to another computer, it'll do the same thing. It will ransom or encrypt the files in that computer and spread and spread and spread and spread. So that's why entire organizations have been shut down. This is why large organizations have been shut down, which calls for, again, why you segment your networks, why you do a lot of the different things that we do within Intel security, and WannaCry and other forms of malware, ransomware specifically WannaCry, contribute to this awareness. So this is how this works, but here is the good news. I don't know about your region or about your customers, but here in the United States, as far as I know, we received very little, if no one, calling in to say they've been hacked, and now they're mad at SonicWall. What we had a flurry of calls come in where people are asking us, are we okay? What do we do? Oh my goodness, what's going on here? But our customers as a whole were safe because you know why? SonicWall, far, far, far in advance of the first attack, over 3 weeks before the attack, had signatures in place to block the components of the NSA tools, if they are in fact NSA tools. We call them NSA tools as well as shadow broker tools. All those tools that were released by the shadow broker, our team on the 14th of April took those tools, stripped them down, figured out what made them tick, and created signatures within 3 days. Now, of course, WannaCry was somehow found as well, and we had signatures
Please contact
as well.
your meeting organizer or dial the support number provided on your conference card to obtain the correct information.
All right, well, I'm assuming you guys can still hear me, despite that little message from the lady on the other side of the phone. But we had signatures in place to block WannaCry. We also had developed signatures and other countermeasures to block CNC communication as well as web communication. And of course, we retain the ability to decrypt SSL so that you can decrypt these files that are coming into the network. So that being said, well in advance of the attack, SonicWall had already countermeasures in place, not just for WannaCry, but for all the components. We're talking about from IPS to GAV, all the way down to blocking servers and blocking communication. And this is the power of Capture Labs, is that we're able to cross-pollinate threat data across all the different lines to ensure that we have protections in every form of product that we sell, from the firewall to secure mobile access, all the way down to email security. Now, what I'm going to share with you here is how we are stopping ransomware on web and device traffic specifically. On the right side of the screen, you're going to see a lot of our certifications. We have ICSA certifications for the firewalls, for the antivirus, as well as the SSL VPN, which on the left side of the screen is that mobile access VPN with a little police officer icon right there. And of course, for 5 years in a row, our firewalls have been NSS Labs recommended, and we're shooting for a 6th year as well. Now, down on the top, you'll see the CRM product of the year. That's Capture ATP. Look on the left side of your screen. Touch it. It says Network Sandbox. Little gear in a cloud there, that icon there. This is the Network Sandbox. We're going to go a little bit more in depth on that today. That won CRN's 2016 NetSec Product of the Year by customer demand. And I'll describe what a Network Sandbox is in just a moment. And interestingly here, I put a bronze award up here on the screen. And that bronze award is also for that same Capture ATP, a Network Sandbox, right down there in the bottom. Why am I bragging about a bronze? Why am I showing this to you? We won this when the product was only 4 or 5 months old. So if we're able to unseat competitors who've held this award in the past, within a number of months, you can see why we did that. And pretty soon I'll talk to you about multi-engine sandboxing and why this is changing the network, changing network security, and why our customers are staying safe, as well as why our customers are still happy today. So that being said, let's go a little bit a deep dive on that technology. So when it came to WannaCry and stopping WannaCry, we're stopping any other form of malware. Our first stop is using a thing called content filtering. This is typically in the United States used to secure schools. They receive a thing called SIPA on the right there. It's a federal thing that helps pay for schools network security. That doesn't apply to where you are at for the most part, but a lot of your customers will have content filtering. Now, if you are a customer or if you are a partner that sells to customers, we want you to share this with your customers. A lot of them are using content filtering. They've been paying for content filtering, but they are not using it, okay? If you're using it, because typically it's been billed as, because it comes in CGSS, AGSS, the Comprehensive Gateway Security Suite. It comes with Advanced Gateway Security Suite. We'll talk a lot more of that in a second. But a lot of times content filtering is packaged in and not being used. They're using the other services but not using this. Turn it on, okay? You don't have to worry about blocking Facebook or trying to limit bandwidth on YouTube, which is designed to do in many cases. Just use it to block malicious links. We have numerous categories for websites. Now, you can turn that on so that it blocks websites that do not have a category, which means a website we have not seen yet. We have cataloged millions and millions and millions of websites, but there's always new websites popping up all the time. So therefore, if it's not cataloged yet, you can block that because it could be new. It could be a hacking site that we have not cataloged yet. You can also turn on malicious sites. Turn that setting on. Content filtering can help you there. Later, I'll talk about botnet filtering and how that blocks command and control communication for hackers. Now, SSL decryption. I spoke about that before, and I'll speak about it here as well. It is very, very, very important for you to enable your firewall to decrypt SSL or TLS communication. The reason why is today, first of all, 62% of sessions coming into your network are encrypted. Let me ask you a question. Think about this. What percent of malware today is encrypted? What percent of malware today is encrypted? I ask people this a lot at trade shows, and I get two numbers: 5%, 4%, 10%, or the other one, 100%. So no, the answer is over 50% of malware today is encrypted. SPL said 10%. No, sir, or ma'am, it is over 50% of malware today is encrypted. If you do not have the ability to see encrypted traffic, you do not have the ability to block that 50% of malware that is encrypted today. WannaCry can come in encrypted channels, so you need to see it before you can stop it. You cannot see it, you cannot stop it, you will be hacked. Next generation firewall. There's a lot of different firewalls out there today. A lot of you on the phone today may be running older devices. Although these will work, and they're good at stopping WannaCry. You know, your older devices still work, but they are not going to do exactly what they need to do to moving forward into the next generation or the current generation of malware. It's good for rudimentary abilities, but we need to talk about the next level here. Talk to your sales rep about the Generation 6 appliance if you do not have those. So with the TZ line, we're talking about 300, 400, 500, 600. If you have a device, let's say a 250, that is an older device, and we need to talk about giving you an upgrade. There's our Customer Advantage program where you can take a look at what your model would translate to, so you can get a discount when trying to migrate. Talk to your sales rep because they may want to take a look at the traffic that's coming into your organization today, and to make sure the device that you plan on running is able to run all of those sessions, as well as decrypt the SSL TLS traffic that's coming to the network now that did not come into your network 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. If it's been 4 years since you've had a firewall, talk to someone who knows a lot about this so you can kind of go through that. So, of course, in order for you to run decryption, you need more firepower, and that's what these are all about. It's adding more power, more horsepower and engines, essentially, to process this. A firewall's job is this, to strip apart traffic so that you can see what we know about it. And when we can see traffic in plain text, we're able to apply gateway security to this so we can know what we know about it. Okay? When it comes to WannaCry, gateway security is our hero for WannaCry. The reason why is because we built in signatures into, we call it gateway security, also known as GAV, IPS, gateway antivirus and intrusion prevention service. IPS and GAV are an amazing combination because it also includes application control and botnet filtering. So if you look at the bullet points on the left, botnet filtering enables you to stop communicating with CNC servers. Typically, if they want to exfiltrate data, the malware will go in, look for data, and pump it out, usually to a botnet or to a command and control server. We're going to stop those communications there because we know millions of these CNC servers, as we call them. Now, the proof in the pudding here, gateway security and IPS, GAV IPS, it blocks 7.2 billion malware attacks and 2.6 trillion IPS attacks. In the case of WannaCry, we saw very few hits on the malware side in comparison to the number of IPS attacks that we saw, because WannaCry is designed to go out there and hit servers using Eternal Blue, but is blocked with an IPS signature. So our work here is all from Capture Labs. Our Capture Labs research team is an amazing set of researchers, formerly known as the Grid Network, now known as Capture Labs. Studied this technology, reverse engineered it, and built the signatures enabled to stop this. So when it comes down to the real numbers, take a look at this. Like I mentioned before, last year, SonicWall with Gateway Security and Capture ATP, which I'll talk about in a minute here, stopped 638 million ransomware attacks on our customers. We do not have 638 million customers. We protect over 1 million networks. So you can see almost a 630-to-1 ratio of attacks per customer system. SonicWall is amazing at stopping ransomware. We did an amazing job at stopping WannaCry. And whatever comes up next, any other copycat, we're there to find it. Now, the big question is, we know of 17 or whatever number of versions of WannaCry. We know of millions of different types of ransomware versions. We know of a lot of different copycats. But the big question is, what about the new stuff? Okay? There's always a new update. There's always a new copycat. There's always a new version of something. There's always a new attack vector. There's going to be zero-day vulnerabilities that people are going to try to leverage. So Like I mentioned before, last year we processed over 60 million new forms of malware. We're talking polymorphic malware versions for different operating systems. We're talking about new different updates. There's a lot of different things that we're seeing out there. We saw over 60 million new forms of malware. And if you break that down, that's roughly 114 bits of malware every single minute of the day. That's 2, 4, 6, 8 new forms of malware in just that bit of sentence alone. So now you understand the impact that we have here and all the malware that we have to process. The Capture Labs team, of course, is trying to process every single bit of malware and push out signatures as soon as they can. But this new malware has to hit somewhere. With 60 million new bits of malware just within our customer base alone, you have to have a protection in place to stop that. And this is what we use, where we call network sandboxing. We use a product here called Capture Advanced Threat Protection Service, also known as Capture ATP. That's on the top of the screen there, Capture ATP. It's a network sandbox. What is a network sandbox, you may ask? Here's what it is. Let's say you have a suspicious file coming through the firewall. The firewall has never seen it before. It doesn't know if it's white or blacklisted. Whitelisted obviously means it's good. So what do we call that? We call it a gray file. We don't know anything about it. But do you let it into your network? Well, if you do, if it's good, it's fine because you want to have good performance and boom, you have it in your network. But what if it's bad? Well, that's where you use a sandbox. You take it to an isolated environment and you run the code to see what happens. It's kind of like if someone gives you a file in an email saying, hey, download this file, it will change your life. Instead of downloading it to your personal computer, you fire up another computer off to the right and you run that program to see what it does. Well, if it's a ransomware, well, you can stop it that way. So that's how a network sandbox works, is that we take suspicious files, we blow them up. But here's what makes us different. This is why it won CRN 2016 NetSec Product of the Year by Customer Demand. Why? It is a multi-engine sandbox. Take a look at that diagram there on the screen. All the stuff in that kind of bluish green, the sea green, that's what we stop. That's the same stuff I just spoke about just a minute ago. Content filtering, other known as URL filtering, IPS, all that, intrusion prevention, antivirus, botnet filtering, all that stuff, SL decryption. These are the things we know about, all the code that we know about, right? Decryption so that we can see it. But the question is, what about the stuff we don't know about it? And that's what the sandbox is all about here. The network sandbox, Capture ATP, is a multi-engine sandbox that can look at it at multiple levels. We also have the ability to block until verdict so that you're able to block those files before they enter your network. Now, like I mentioned before, it's a multi-engine sandbox, the first of its kind. First that can block until verdict, because one, it includes a virtualized sandbox, it includes hypervisor level analysis, and full system emulation, so that one, we can see what code wants to do from the application down to the operating system, down to the software that resides on the hardware. Think about that for a second. Let me show you how this works. Let's say you like to play a game like tennis or soccer. If you have a Q&A box, put in a sport. I'll make it about you for just a second here. Nothing? Okay. So let's say we have a friend of ours. He'd love to play tennis. He wakes up the next day and his wrist is throbbing. So he goes to his doctor and says, "Oh, it hurts so bad. What do I do?" So she looks at his wrist, examines it, bends it, looks at it, looks fine. There's no bruising, can't see what's wrong. So she orders up an X-ray. And you go through this X-ray, your friend goes to the X-ray, and we see there's nothing wrong with the bones. So she says, let's take a look at an MRI. What's happening at the tissue level? What's happening at the vascular level? See if there's something we can see about this. And that is the same thing here. The visual inspection, the doctor bending the wrist, is like virtualized sandboxing. The X-ray is hypervisor level analysis, able to see deeper, see what's happening on the memory. Yeah, because that's where malware is going first. And then afterwards, we want to take a look at what everything does. We want to see what it does from the operating system down to the software that resides in the hardware, the full system emulation. And this is how we're catching the world's worst ransomware, is through these 3 steps. It's an amazing bit of technology. Now, if you'd like to get that, I'll show you more about how it works in just a second. But if you're interested in getting this CaptureATP, the best way to get it is through a thing called Advanced Gateway Security Suite. If you're a customer, talk to your partner. We're playing with some ideas right now on how to give you some really good deals on getting this as soon as you can. Now, like I mentioned before, a lot of people have a thing called Comprehensive Gateway Security Suite. That's CGSS. That's a different price and has less technology in it. That includes the content filtering, like we spoke about before. It includes GAP IPS, which includes application, botnet filtering, things like that. Now, CaptureATP is added into Advanced Gateway Security Suite, AGSS. And of course, that little clock you see on the right side of the tube, that represents the 24/7 support that you will receive when you own this. This enables you to take every bit of data coming into your network to be examined to come through clean and clear. So, just to give you kind of a quick tour here of CaptureATP, now that you know how to get it, you know a little bit about it, you're able to go in here and select different settings. Again, I won't take this away from the salespeople or the sales engineers. They can describe this more. If you have any questions, you can hit me up at Twitter at brchelmo. But otherwise, have that conversation with your sales rep. Afterwards, you have, this is what your desktop would look like. Now, of course, the different colors refer to the amount of malware that we're seeing, the percentage of malware. This is our test environment. Yours will not look like this. You will not find this much malware, especially in that high of percentage. This is a test environment. I'm trying to be very clear with you so that you see this is not what you would see. You would maybe find one every few days. The average organization, small or big, finds roughly about pacing about 28 bits of new malware every single year. Now, if you're a large organization, you're going to find much more. If you're very small, you'll find less. But nonetheless, CaptureATP is essential at finding all the new malware, stopping zero-day attacks, and stopping all those new versions of WannaCry that are out there. So, it's CaptureATP. You can select one of the malicious files you see below. You'll get something that looks similar to this. Here is where you can see the different engines. Here is a thing called server ransomware. This is one of the most difficult and pernicious and malicious forms of malware the world has ever seen. WannaCry is famous, but Cerber is beautifully crafted. First of all, take a look at that. Engine Alpha has gray. Engine Alpha could not find it. Could not find it to be malicious. I'm being very honest with you. Engine Beta, Engine Gamma did. Cerber ransomware is very difficult to find. Our competitors have struggled a lot to stop Cerber ransomware. And Cerber, of course, is used in a lot of ransomware service kits and exploit kits. It's hitting our competitors really hard. But why can you see this? Because we can catch it. The multi-engine sandbox CaptureATP can see this. And there we have it. Let's take a look at what if you click on the XML file, right there in the middle, you'll see that it deploys 7 different evasion tactics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Some of them including timing detection. They want to see if they're being timed. They're doing a lot of different things to try to get past network sandboxes and get past firewalls and get past Windows security as well. On the right, you have a screenshot. Engine Gamma caught this one. Now, this is what your endpoint would look like had you not had this level of service and this level of protection. CaptureATP is very good at finding that, and it's ready to find that next version of ransomware, specifically WannaCry and the other copycats that are trying to use the same thing. So again, CaptureATP, high level, it's very important to use this because it provides you a high level of security effectiveness, fast response time, and total cost of ownership. Now, of course, we have security in many different ways, from firewalls to secure mobile access to email security. We're doing this in a lot of different ways to help you stay secure. So just to try to get to a few things here so we can kind of cover some best practices and help you cover a few more things here. We're also added that CaptureATP to the email security chain. Capture ATP is essential now at examining suspicious attachments coming through email. Like I mentioned before, in the beginning of the presentation, that one example that was hit for $2.4 million. Remember that one? In this case, it was an accounts payable person. What they did is they saw an email come through, and they said, oh, it said, this is an unpaid invoice, and they clicked on it. And what happened is it was ransomware and locked up the system. Now, had you had this level of protection within email security, the Board of Water and Light today would be safe because that email could not have come in, because that file has been examined, and they would see that it was actually a Trojan. So we're going to get to some Q&A here in just a second. So I want to share with you a bit of best practices developed by my friend Rob Krug, who you'll hear more of in the future. Rob has some high-level things for defeating ransomware Sonic Wall. Top level, DPI SSL, so SSL decryption. Very important, we cover that. 62% of sessions, over 50% of malware is encrypted. You have to do that. DPI SSH, including application rules to control and inspect SSH traffic. This is something you probably didn't have to think about 4 years ago, but you definitely have to consider today. Gateway antivirus. This is how we stop known malware. Capture ATP. This is how we stop unknown malware. That's the capture sandbox we just spoke about, NetSec Product of the Year. It's an amazing thing. Multiple engines looking for multiple forms of malware. IPS, that's intrusion prevention. This is including the SMB vulnerabilities within Microsoft version 1. They call SMB v1. So we have a lot of signatures in place to prevent that. So Sonic Wall helps you be future-proof as well. That's the benefit here. Botnet filtering is, again, stopping communication with known malicious hosts and domains and bots. So specifically, command and control senders and servers. Content filtering is helping you prevent connections with non-rated domains or maliciously rated domains. You can use it again to also, if your employees are having a hard time with Facebook or social media, you can also block them or limit the bandwidth of YouTube if YouTube is really draining your bandwidth. The application firewall, that's something you can use through a lot of different organizations to restrict the control, personal, webmail, etc. We also take a look at our SSL VPN, our secure mobile access technology, like I spoke about here in this slide here. That's under the beautiful orange bar here, this set of technology here in the center of the screen. Secure mobile access, the SSL VPN, is important to control applications, users, and devices trying to have access to your network. It's very important that you do that. In fact, if you read our 2017 2017 threat report, you'll learn on how IoT devices, the internet-connected devices within your organization, are now being used as part of DDoS cannons. So SSL VPN, our secure mobile access line of products, is really important in regulating that access. Of course, I forgot to mention DNS proxy. This is rules to control DNS traffic. You can do that if you see a lot of IP addresses trying to ping your servers that you don't like, block them with DNS proxy. Email security is very important. Like I mentioned before, 65% of all ransomware attacks happen through phishing emails. And we also talk about network segmentation. It's very important to segment your networks. So a worm, like you saw here with WannaCry, can't tunnel through system after system after system. If you're able to segment your networks, you're able to control the damage, much like you would have thick doors between sections of buildings to contain fires. So, with that being said, this is a lot of the best practices that we have here when it comes to stopping ransomware.